Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, as the number of COVID cases continue to rise interstate, pressure is growing for Tasmanians to be inoculated. Vaccinations will now be mandatory for healthcare workers, but questions remain on what the threshold will be for our borders to reopen to areas currently considered high risk.
Tasmania's COVID vaccination rate continuing its steady climb.
And we need this momentum to continue.
60% of eligible Tasmanians have now had their first dose, 44% with their second, and the blitz continues. 12 to 15-year-olds now able to book their jabs, with youth super clinics coming online from next month. GPs to administer Pfizer from September 13, the vaccine now mandatory for healthcare workers.
The first dose or evidence of a booking for a first dose required by the 31st of October.
Unclear what the consequence will be for those who refuse without a medical exemption.
Then they should seriously reconsider whether they're in the appropriate profession and in the appropriate setting.
It's currently unclear when Tasmania will reach 80% double dose or when our borders will reopen to Victoria and New South Wales.
I'm not going to give you a precise answer to when it's. I would provide advice on border change.
The message from the acting Premier.
Daily we see the cases, the thousands of cases, and we shouldn't be desensitised to that, because the other figures is that people are dying.
The aim to avoid seeing more deaths here in Tasmania. Health professionals say the closer to 90% we can get before easing restrictions, the better.
We get vaccination coverage as high as we can when we're giving everybody in Tasmania an opportunity to get vaccine if they want it.
We support the national plan and will also be very much guided by public health.
The tourism industry hoping for a light at the end of the tunnel.
A few weeks prior it was really quiet with the border closures and lockdowns, but we feel like there is a sense of optimism out there, so we're holding on to that.
Launceston celebrating as business begins to bounce back.
Around COVID time, we were seeing some 25% of shops around the CBD were empty. That's come down to under 10% at the moment, so that is extremely positive.
Now the key message as we look to the future.
Get the vaccination.
Get vaccinated as quick as you can.
Don't wait. Vaccinate.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
It's feared a fisherman who plunged overboard in waters off Flinders Island nearly 24 hours ago won't be found alive. Late this afternoon, police called off the search for the 39-year-old man from the Philippines who was working on a Victorian vessel. Experts believe poor weather conditions, including strong winds and huge swells, would make it extremely unlikely he could have survived. A report will be prepared for the coroner. Meanwhile, WorkSafe Tasmania is investigating a death in Baghdad yesterday afternoon after a man was trapped while working under the carriage of a bus. Emergency services were called to the scene around 4 o'clock, where they remained for several hours. But sadly, the man couldn't be saved. Police and WorkSafe will now prepare a report for the coroner. The state government has refused to speculate on whether a no jab, no entry policy could become a reality for large-scale events, but admits all cards are on the table. It comes as the Junction Arts Festival is given a $1.3 million injection for its future.
It's the music, the performances, and the general atmosphere that draws thousands through the gates of Princes Square every year.
Over the 10 years or now 11 years that we've been around, there's a great love for Junction.
Those reasons alone, according to the state government, also make a very strong business case for an extra $1.35 million.
Every year, despite the weather, it manages to deliver for the community.
The funding partnership means the festival will live on for at least another 3 years. However, at what size and in what capacity is a closely guarded secret.
Watch this space.
Organisers admit this year's budget is tight. As many as 13,000 people would usually pour through the gates over the 5 days. But with crowds heavily capped, the once lucrative ticket takings now aren't as plentiful.
Normally we would have many thousands of people in the square, and at the moment we can have only 1,000.
The Minister concedes most in the sector are keen to break free from the shackles of COVID restrictions, but safety remains the top priority. Whether that road back to normality could include a no jab, no entry policy for large-scale events.
I think that all cards are on the table at the moment.
We have yet to explore that really. I think we're in a bit of a bubble here at the moment.
Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
Construction season is about to kick off and a new campaign is urging Tasmanians to be cautious when driving through roadworks. The message from those who work on the sites is your speed is our safety.
It can be quite terrifying for us out there on the roads. Near misses happen every day, and if I was to report every single one of them, you'd have a list as long as the Tasman Bridge.
Just think of the people in the work site. These are mums and dads. These are people who have come to work fit and healthy and deserve to go home at the end of the day fit and healthy.
The new ads will also contain updates on where roadworks are happening. A 95-year-old aviation pioneer has added to her uniform stockpile, receiving a special Royal Flying Doctor Service jacket. Anne Lewis was the first female pilot to gain her commercial licence and the first to fly for the service in 1948.
Anne Lewis has seen more of the world from above than most.
I can remember on my first solo many, many years ago, getting airborne and thinking, I'm absolutely alone. I'm not in contact with humanity at all. And it was rather a sort of pleasant feeling.
Flying is in her blood. Her father owned an airline company in Western Australia.
Much to his horror, I took to flying. But eventually he came round and let me join the company.
At the age of 20, she flew her first plane, a Tiger Moth. By 23, she received her commercial licence. Anne soon joined the RAF in England as there were no female pilots in the Air Force in Australia at the time. She then worked for an international charter company where she flew around the world, notching up more than 100 countries in 10 years. The 95-year-old remembers vividly her first flight with the Royal Flying Doctor Service, formerly the Australian Aerial Medical Service.
It was such a shock to the system. It was a breech berth from Laverton to Kalgoorlie, and this woman was absolutely in total agony and just screamed the whole way.
Today, the Burnie local received a special gift from the RFDS as a token of appreciation for her decades of service.
Love you to have this jacket and think about us each time you put it on.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think to have a uniform after all these years is very special. Thank you very much indeed. Very superior.
It's extraordinary, and I really would encourage young women to listen to Anne's story, and if interested in aviation, to consider their future perhaps as a pilot with the RFDS.
Anne still takes to the skies when she can.
Tried my hand at a couple of landings and did a couple of smooth landings, so that was all right, and I just feel if I had to, I could.
LETITIA Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
A skin cancer survivor has urged Tasmanians to reconsider their relationship with the sun at the launch of this year's Sun Smart season. Brooke Everingham was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma in May last year. Just days later, she had surgery to remove a large section of skin from her back and shoulder.
I just didn't think it would happen to me. I thought I was too young. I have skin that tans, so I didn't think it really happened to people that had tan skin.
It's the most preventable cancer, and so we really encourage people to slip, slop, slap, seek and slide, those measures that now have been around for some time, and make it the norm.
Australia has one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world, while melanoma is currently the second most diagnosed cancer in Tasmania. 10 Lives Cat Centre is hoping to recruit new foster carers at an open day tomorrow. The shelter is expecting a bumper season for kittens and needs hundreds of helpers to keep up with demand.
They look comfy in the care of 10 Lives volunteers, but these cats are looking for the perfect new home. The centre is holding an open day this weekend, encouraging more people to foster or adopt.
To let everybody know how many volunteers and foster carers we're going to be needing this upcoming season, but also to explain to people about what those roles are and how they can help 10 lives.
The shelter looks after thousands of cats each year and receives upwards of 30 per day. But in recent months, they've seen an unprecedented amount of kittens surrendered. 10 Lives needs around 150 new volunteers and 200 foster carers by October to help give more cats like Frida a new home.
We've just had a constant stream of kittens arriving, and when it gets to October, I think when we see the kittens coming through the door, it's going to be quite stressful for us because we've already got a lot of cats and kittens in our care now.
But for those who can't take a cat home, there are other ways to help.
We have a wish list on our website, 10lives.com.au, and it gives you a whole list of all the staples that we do need. It's not just cat food and litter, there's paper, laminating pouches, blue tack, all that little bit helps us.
10 Lives Carer Expo starts at 10:30 tomorrow morning. AINSLEY, KOCH, 7 Tasmania News.
The Northwest is celebrating 10 years of its unique tasting trail, which showcases local producers. A new visitor map and branding has been released to mark the anniversary and celebrate the latest businesses who've come on board.
We started off with 6. We now have 37 producers on the map, and that's actually 10 more than we had when COVID hit. So that's pretty amazing, that growth that's happened since then and the keenness to be a part of the trail.
The bulk of the new producers have been in the beverage space. We've got a few new beer brewers, another distiller cropping up on Table Cape in the very near future. We've got some cider producers, we've got kimchi, we've got hazelnuts.
Local producers are featured on the Tasting Trail website, and maps can be found at visitor centres along the coast.
James Faulkner has dished out a spray at the Hobart Hurricanes, calling their offer of a 1-year contract extension disrespectful. Faulkner says a multi-year deal was never on the table and that his manager was embarrassed to show him the offer tabled.
I found it pretty disrespectful for what I've sort of given to Tasmanian cricket. I've put my heart and soul into it, and to hear the initial offer, and that's what it all comes down to. Yeah, it sort of cut pretty deep.
31-year-old had been a part of the Hurricanes since 2018. Glenorchy Knights kept their title hopes alive with a win in the last round and need to do it again tomorrow against Devonport. The almighty clash is being labelled just as big as the side's Lacko Seljack Cup final.
No pressure on us or anything to lose there, so we really do get to go out and play with a lot of freedom, but at the same time we can't afford to make too many errors, because a side like Devonport, if you do early in a match, it's going to be a hard job to get back into it.
And Lucy Johnson has become the 3rd Tasmanian player to join the W League. The former Olympia and Hobart Zebras player joins the Newcastle Jets. Mouth-watering finals fixtures across Tasmania, with local competitors Longford and Bracknell and Cygnet and Huonville set to fight for their town's pride tomorrow. While in the TSL, Launceston says the big wet will suit its players just fine against Clarence. The minor premier was humbled by North Launceston, copping its first loss at Windsor Park for the season. But Mitch Thorpe denies wild and woolly weather is a leveller.
If we reflect to last year's grand final, it was really wet. So we think that suits us.
Thorpe still hasn't named himself in the side, but he's rolling the dice on 3 changes, including omitting a potentially underdone Braden Pitcher.
We've brought in a couple of the Devils boys that are really fit and cover the ground particularly well.
Going in as favourite again, Thorpe knows the pressure is on his troops, but don't doubt the hunger after last week's loss.
A few of our boys were a little bit hurt from that, so I'd be expecting a pretty sharp response.
Meanwhile, Mitch's brother Beau will lead Longford into battle when the Tigers take on Bracknell. A spot in the NTFA Premier Division's decider is on the line. Just as important is bragging rights between the neighbouring towns.
The local community here gets right behind the footy, and they've been starved over the last few years of finals, but they're really hungry.
You walk in the shop, down the street or the pub, it's the talk of the town, and it's just a privilege to be able to play in a premier final.
Longford has had the edge in this year's encounters. They meet again tomorrow at Deloraine. And whether Cygnet really has a home ground advantage in tomorrow's SFL semi-final against Huonville is up for debate.
It actually works the other way, I think. They normally beat us at home and we always beat them down there. So I don't really know how that works, but yeah, I think we enjoyed the bigger ground, a bit more space.
The two sides met in last year's decider, where the Lions claimed the cup, adding to the ferocity of this fight.
In the past, it was probably a lot of a hatred rivalry, whereas now it's a lot of mutual respect, because obviously the last few years, Cygnet and Huonville have both been up there.
The other semi-final sees Lindisfarne host Dodgers Ferry. And with all the talk over the state of playing surfaces this week, tonight's Friday Flashback is just some of the muddiest games we could find. And we begin in 1990 at York Park, when there was so much mud, the ball simply fell flat in the goal square. What a difference modern drainage has made.
A long kick by Smith up towards the goal square. It stops dead in the mud, but leading the race for the ball is Groenewegen.
York Park unrecognisable under layers of slop, a bit like the players. Only 500 people watched this Sunday clash, where the Robins walloped South Launceston by more than 100 points. Speaking of deplorable conditions, take a look at North Hobart Oval in the infamous 1992 TFL prelim. A deluge reduced skills and scoring to a minimum as the temperature hovered around 4 degrees. The Hobart Tigers won the match despite only kicking 5 goals, 4 of them from free kicks. The crowd of 1,800 was the lowest ever for a preliminary final at the time. Outraged, the league demanded the following week's grand final not be televised live. Fearing a repeat 3 years later, the TFL moved 2 games to Bellerive and Queenborough Oval.
Just don't want to cause any more damage.
That comment from ground staff at North Hobart Oval this morning signalled the closure of league headquarters for this week at least.
Even the highest level isn't immune. The MCG was a mud bath in the late 80s. And how about Arctic Park?
But take it from me, this is wild woolly. Look at those hailstones.
Even the snapper ducked for cover as the Cats and Bears were hammered by hail at Waverley.
Well, the visibility's so bad he had to put his hand up.
And in 99 at Football Park,
there is a sign up on the scoreboard. Just a reminder, should the lights go at any stage through the night. I tell you what, it's just gone.
Thunder and lightning knocked out 2 light towers in torrential rain.
This weather, we love it. We love the wet, actually.
And as a sloppy spectacle, don't we all?
Good evening. A wet day across the state thanks to the slow-moving band of rain. 15 in Hobart and Launceston today. Burnie and Devonport both 14 degrees. Warmer conditions in the north. 24 on Flinders Island with the state's top. St Helens 20. The Friendly Beaches 17. Bushy Park, Lowhead and Smithton 14. 13 at Ooze. And it was a cloudy day for the entire state today. Further out in low-level cloud over the south and eastern coasts. Large areas inland enjoying mostly clear skies. And a cold front will move into the Tasman Sea tomorrow and extend up through New South Wales. On the water and west to southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots. Swells to 4 to 5 metres in the west and south, below a metre in the north. And a flood watch remains for the North Esk, South Esk, Macquarie and Meander river catchments. Saturday's forecast now: a shower for Hobart 14, Medina a late shower and 12, and a fine day on the way for Oatlands 11. Launceston fine and 16, mostly sunny for Devonport 14, frost and a late shower for Lyowini, a cool 8 degrees. Burnie 14 tomorrow, Strawn 13 and Marrawar a mostly sunny day 13 also. In the east tomorrow is St Helens an early shower and 14, Swansea 15, 14 for Orford. Looking to Sunday now, and light showers about the west, south and far northeast, extending statewide in the evening. On to Monday, and showers again about the west and far south, fine elsewhere. And Tuesday, showers again for the west and far south, but otherwise a fine day. Perth tomorrow fine and 19, a shower for Adelaide 15, rain for Canberra and Sydney, Brisbane 23, Darwin sunny and 34. And it's a cloudy evening, 11 in Hobart, 11 in Launceston and 11 in Devonport. Kim, that's all in weather.
Legs 11 everywhere. Thank you very much, Laura, and that is your news for now. Louise Hubar will join you over the weekend. For now, on behalf of the entire team, good night.